score, and maybe not as ugly as the box score indicated, but this Steelers offense incapable of mustering anything throughout the night. Rodgers finished 17 of 33 for a $146 with an INT, but it's the Houston defense owning the day in Pittsburgh. Back in studio alongside Bryant McFadden and Emery Hunt here to break down what we saw, and that's the two-time Super Bowl champ in black and yellow that knows that standard well. And Mac, once again, playoff football and that standard not met. Outmatched in this game, I think fair to say, with what they had to deal with defensively from Houston. If you're going to give out a game ball, it's got to go to that pass rush group up front.
The entire defense for the Houston Texans, and as we previewed this ball game, we knew the Texans would have dominant moments. But they dominated from start to finish in a game in which CJ Stroud and his offense, they had some issues as well protecting the football. But when you look at the Houston Texans defensively, the Pittsburgh Steelers, they were 2 of 13 on third down, only converted 2 third downs the entire ball game. They were 0 for 2 in the red zone. Houston, they forced 2 turnovers. They had 4 sacks. They had 2 defensive touchdowns. They scored 14 points themselves, and they only allowed 6 points. And when they were not taking the football away, they were making Aaron Rodgers so uncomfortable. When you look at Aaron Rodgers' day, he threw for 146 yards. But get this, guys, he averaged 4.4 yards per throw. He was trying to get the football out of his hands. Yeah. And this game reminded me a lot of when the Pittsburgh Steelers played against Cleveland, the last matchup. And just the awareness of where Myles Garrett was. You saw Aaron was just trying to get it out. But when you watch tonight's game, it was like they had multiple Myles Garrett.
Edges, A-gaps. It was pressure from everywhere.
Everywhere. And then when you weren't getting pressure from the perimeter, the interior, Sheldon Rankins was a grown man. I mean, this defense, highly advertised. They lived up to the billing tonight, and they just took the game away. And then when they finally got things rolling for their team, then their offense showed up as well. So it was an ugly performance for Pittsburgh, and when you watch Aaron Rodgers compared to how well he played against the Baltimore Ravens, he actually looked like he was 42, and it wasn't because he lost anything. It was just how dominant Houston looked defensively.
You have to give credit to the offensive line, too. They dominated, Houston did, on both sides of the line of scrimmage. Yep. We looked at how they ran the football and was like, wow, those linemen of the Texans are already at the second level. The backs are getting 5 yards before they even getting contacted by Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So kudos to the Texans for dominating both sides of the point of attack. That was paramount in this ball game for them to have success. We knew the defensive line would do their job, but that offensive line surprised me because I thought the Steelers had the edge up front pregame, but during the game, we saw the Houston Texans start to lean and wear down that Steelers defensive front, which led the run game happen. And to your point, 6.2 yards of play for the Texans. So when CJ Stroud held on to the football, they found success, and they were already on the plus side of the sticks, which is why they were able to convert 10 out of 14 or 13 on third downs.
We're going to get to what's next for quarterback and coach in Pittsburgh in just a bit, and broad thoughts there, I'm sure. But staying locked into what we saw over this 60 minutes, it was historic in some ways, this performance by the Houston Texans defense. First time in NFL history, a defensive touchdown, no touchdowns allowed, and fewer than 200 yards of total offense allowed. This was comprehensive in their effort, what they did to this offense of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The offense of the Houston Texans also left something out there to be desired. Again, defense scores 14 of your 30 points, and you got short fields on your other points. A couple nice throws by CJ Stroud, but 3 turnovers, not going to get it done moving on in the playoffs. What did you make of Stroud's performance specifically tonight?
He was a bit shaky. You talked about the 3 turnovers. You can't have those mishaps in playoff football, especially on the road. The luxury C.J. Stroud has at his disposal is their defense.
We'll get it back.
Yeah, we'll get it back, or we won't allow any points. But as you continue to move on in the playoffs, when you're playing against better offenses from top to bottom, those mishaps can come back to haunt you. But in today's game, guys, the pocket awareness was a bit in question. Holding on to the football, being a bit careless with the football in the pocket led to turnovers for Pittsburgh, and then the costly red zone turnover. You know, those are areas you have to be smart with the football. It didn't hurt them tonight, but if you continue to have those mishaps in the red zone when you're taking points off the scoreboard, worst case scenario, you're kicking 3, you're making 3, you're getting 3.
Yeah.
But you cannot allow the opposing defense to take the football away. And those are things that C.J. Stroud has to get out of his game because he's been in playoff moments before. This wasn't his first playoff career game. So you need C.J. to showcase that, that veteran presence of playoff moments and be able to be smart with the football, because he has to understand, guys, when he has that type of defense backing him, punting the football is okay.
Yeah.
Settling for field goals is okay. You just can't allow turnovers.
Make him go 80, sorry, Emery, against this defense. But you just said something important there. The experience. This was his 5th playoff game. The comfortability. It looks like regression almost in that sense.
I would say it shows you tonight it's a total team game, because as he wasn't doing his 111, you saw everybody else pick it up. The offensive line picked it up. The receivers picked it up outside of Nico Collins when he went down. You saw Jaden Higgins have a big day. Christian Kirk had a huge day.
8 for 144 and a touchdown.
And that was huge. And then you saw, Jalen Noel had himself some moments as well. So I like the fact that everyone else around CJ Stroud didn't cater as he was catering, and then he finally got his sea legs underneath him, made 1 or 2 throws. But you're right. In order to move forward, when you're looking at who they face next, New England, this is a football team. They're going to need their best from C.J. Stroud.
Yep.
They're going to need their best from their offensive line once again. They're going to need the best from their receivers once again. So maybe this was an appetizer for what we're going to see next week, but they need C.J. Stroud to elevate his level of play, because the C.J. Stroud we saw tonight was like the C.J. Stroud we saw earlier in the year that was going through those bouts of inconsistency. We need to get that old thing back from C.J. Stroud like we saw to close out the regular season.
All right, before we look forward to what's next for Pittsburgh, let's look back here for a moment, Mac, because it's a frustrating season in some senses. It's also a season to be celebrated for Aaron Rodgers if this is the last we've seen of him on a football field. I think winning that division is a massive moment, getting it done in Week 18. What's the pervading emotion right now inside you, having watched how it just ended?
I mean, outside of what happened tonight, Aaron Rodgers did what he was supposed to do as the starting quarterback for the Pittsburgh Steelers. You talk about being in a division with Lamar Jackson, with Joe Burrow, high-level quarterbacks that we all respect, and beating those guys enough to win the division and also have a home playoff game. That's what you wanted. Because if you look at some of the predictions that we were getting all across the country in terms of NFL minds, no one anticipated the Pittsburgh Steelers winning the division. Best case scenario, most experts, analysts had them finishing 3rd, behind Baltimore and Cincinnati. So if you look at what Aaron Rodgers did, especially regular season production, he did what he was supposed to do. Clearly you wanted to see more from him, but it's hard. You talk about being the oldest quarterback in the playoffs and playing against a great defensive line and not getting the protection, and your wide receivers or pass catchers not creating separation. That's a tall task. So to answer your question, I don't think it was a bad signing. And we're already hearing from the Pittsburgh Steelers that if Aaron Rodgers would like to return,
doors open,
they will welcome him. Remember who finished the season a year ago for the Pittsburgh Steelers? Russell Wilson. They didn't have the same sentiments for Russell. Clearly, they allowed him to test the market. So if they feel like Aaron Rodgers not only lived up to the billing, Emery, but he still has something left in the tank as well to play good enough for us in 2026 if he would like to do so.
I just feel like we left this season still not knowing an identity for Pittsburgh, even with Aaron Rodgers and how well he played down the stretch. So hopefully if he returns, there is something that we can now, okay, this is what they do well, this is who they're going to be, this is what they have around them. There was a lot of unknown coming into the season, and I feel like we're still leaving with that same unknown outside of a few pieces off. You know what you have in Kenneth Gainwell, you know what you have in those tight ends, when they get healthy, but at the end of the day, do we still know what this offense is? And we know defensively what they are, but offensively speaking, I feel like we still have some unanswered questions, and hopefully we don't leave with that cliffhanger, how a TV show ends. You're just like, man, that was a horrible ending. I hope this is not the ending that we get from Aaron Rodgers.
It has felt like Band-Aids for some time in Pittsburgh, rather than treating a root cause or a root issue and finding a foundation to build upon. What it looks like moving forward, we will explore here shortly on CBS Sports HQ. A look here at some Aaron Rodgers numbers. If it is a career, start the clock now. 5 years to Canton.